So you look and see the pegs where they are, and you'll see that this one only has one makugi because it's an old sword. This sword, I wrote it down, is from the 1600s.
Wow.
Oh, maybe there is still makugi.
So usually these don't have two, they have one because it's a short tang. So for me, because this is an old blade here, I just have to push very slightly and the pin comes right out because it's so old and worn. And that's, you can see it's hand carved. Once I get that pin out, I have to at some point grab the blade. So I use a cloth. I don't want to grab it with my bare hands. You can if you clean it immediately. It's not going to rust unless you leave it. And then sometimes you'll see them where they hold it and they hit, which loosens the handle. Did you see it pop?
Yes.
So by doing this, it sends shock waves down and up, which loosens it. That almost never happens with a modern sword. You need a hammer. This one's very old and loose. So once it's loose here, I can start to remove it. Again, I apologize for pointing. So you can see the handle comes right off of this one. It's very loose. Name of it? Ska. You can see it has a tang here. Often the tang, what a tang is called, anyone remember the tang name?
Nakago.
Correct, very good. The tang was often cut. Some of these swords, if they were hundreds of years old, were much longer at some point, and they would cut them down depending on the period of history. So sometimes you'll see these are cut in different ways. And sadly, they sometimes cut the signature off. They did it. Once that's off, then you have what? The seppa, the spacer. All that is a little washer. And the what? Suba. And I try to keep them in order because you do forget. Another one, right? Now this one's harder to get off. And then this. The habaki. Once it's off, that's it. There's your sword. This is not going to be polished here. Then you can clean it, do maintenance, whatever you need to do, sharpen. People will often touch this and not wipe it because they don't care if this rusts a little bit. I tend to try to keep it clean. You can see the one hole there. I don't know if you can see this has a signature on it. Anyone remember what that's called?
May.
The May, M-E-I, just like the month, M-E-I. And the signature on here, I don't know if, can you come a little closer to see that? I translated this. First kanji is kawachi, which means river. Second one is no, inside. Third one is kami. Minamoto is the fourth kanji. Hiro is the fifth, and Nobu is the sixth. Kawachi no kami, Minamoto, Hiro Nobu. On the signatures, you'll often see the date of the sword that it was made, and the signature of the person, and sometimes where it was made, the prefecture. So this one says, made by Hironobu of the Minamoto clan in the province of Kawachi. And I looked up Kawachi province because they change, is now modern Osaka prefecture. Signatures can be faked. And if you gave a sword, this is old days, if you gave a sword as a present to someone, often they would put a signature on it of a famous sword maker to make it seem more valuable, but it was a lie because obviously it was just a gift. That's weird, isn't it? You would put a fake signature on there of like a Muramasu blade or whatever. So you have to have experts look at it to look at the way the patina is on it and how it was chiseled in with a hammer and stuff. They can tell this is legitimate. Nihon To Society will have paperwork that goes with many blades. You have to pay money, but they'll authenticate it for you. And they'll take pictures and everything and they'll write it all out. So if you buy a sword and it has papers, it's worth more typically because it's been inspected. Now this is something I found around the house. This is one of those things you put in your shelves to hold the shelf up. What I like is it has rubber on it already. And then if I need to, I can use that to hit with a hammer. And it's perfect for taking out a peg because it's the same size. And these are available all over your house. You get them from wherever, right? So this is a modern thing that I find is better than that. This is quite thin, and that can easily ruin your peg. If you hit it the wrong way, it's just going to spike into it. If you do ruin your pegs, and I've done it many times, You can buy these online. They're just pieces of bamboo, I think, or whatever type of wood. And then you can just carve them to fit the hole however you want, which is kind of fun to do. I'm using a modern utility knife because that's very simple. What's this knife called? Katana. This is part of the reason they had these on their swords was for stuff like this. They would sit there and make a new one. So people ask, what was this for on the sword? Well, it's a shuriken, but it's utilitarian. It's a knife to cut meat with, or to cut rope or whatever, to stab things, but also to do this. So it was used just like anything else. But go ahead, I'm going to take this, I'll give to you guys. This you can try. Now, if you can push it out with your hand, you can try, but I don't think it's going to work. I think you're going to need that. Sure. Go ahead and put the sword tip on that, on the cloth. Cool, put this under here so it doesn't scratch. And you can use a sword bag too as a, as a shield. It's always harder than it looks. People just snap them out, but often they edit the video, and it's taken them 10 minutes to get it off.
This thing is
it's a mess. It needs a new one.
Beat.
You guys want to try this?
Yep. Someone want to take off the...
Here. I'll take that one too. Go ahead and really name the parts as you're doing it yourselves. Because the more you say it, the better you get.
Yep.
Yep. Brain totally spaced on that for a second.
I always think it's
And then the habaki. Ooh, the habaki doesn't want
The habaki is often very stubborn.
Is there anything special you do to get it loose?
Yeah.
Usually a hammer.
I did it in order.
Or you can grab it with a cloth and try to pull it as best you can.
Are you thinking about the hibachi?
No.
The grill.
No.
Natalie, is there any signature or anything on that?
Roman numerals, not Roman, but like Latin numerals. 2004.
There you go. So it's a modern make.
It is. There are some other letters. LLDR.
Maybe like limited or something. Many of those short run swords, they would have numbers on them. If they're Chinese made, they might have a signature.
I think it's coming loose. It's moved at the very least.
Now remember, with any type of reproduction sword, the habaki is often a separate sword piece that's made in a separate company, and they ship them in, and the swords are quite standard made. Many of the swords nowadays that come out of China are standard size. It's only when you get into custom swords that they change. Believe it or not, when they say katana, it's a huge range of swords. And then they narrow it down to wakizashi, tanto. But it's like us saying long knife, short knife. Well, that can mean so many things.
Bowie knife.
Yeah.
More recently, I've heard some regions of Japan have a different pronunciation for katana. That some of them say katana instead of katana.
Yeah, just dialects. We usually say katana, but katana is a lot of Japanese people say katana. We usually say katana, and then some people say katana, which really just depends. Everyone has their own thing. I mean, there's a million English words we use that it's the same thing. If you're in the South, it might draw a little bit different than the North. How do you say it?
Katana.
Okay, yeah, that's the typical. If you watch Shogun, occasionally they're like katana.
Yeah.
They make it really small and quick.
My understanding, like, katana, it very much is like a category where it's like Japanese longsword. And then it's like, okay, well, there's lots of different types of katana, types of long swords that fit into this category.
Yeah, you have to remember this is over centuries. So if this is a 350-year-old blade, which it is, the blade is different. One of the ways the experts can tell is the shape of the blade, the curve, not just the tamahagane, but the features of the blade. An expert is so good at it, they just look, they're like, yep, that's about roughly 1650 to 1750. I can get it within 100 years. It's amazing. It's a whole art form. So again, let's look at the parts here. If I point to these, what's the end called? Kisaki is the tip. What's this line called here, if you remember?
Bohi.
No, it's
Oh, wait.
Begins with a Y. Yokote.
Yoko, yes. Side.
The curved part here is the boshi. Think of boshiken. Boshi means hat, but it's often the hamon up here in the curve. But the kisaki is the main word you need to know for the tip, because we'll say stab with the kisaki. You know that there's a ridge line along the blade called what? The ridge line, the widest part of the blade.
The minute? Wait, what are we talking about?
The ridge line.
The G. The full.
Shinogi, or shinogi ji, is the ridge line. That's important because this is the geometrics of the blade. It gets wider, right, and then it goes down to the tip. So the wide part of the blade, the shinogi, is what you often block with. And then you have the cloud line, which is what? Hamon. Remember that the hamon is just the line there. It's not the entire section of the heat treatment. It's just the line. Yakiba is the part that is the entire hardened edge there. And then ha, he remembers edge, like laughing ha-ha. Ha, and the back's called what? The mune, the spine. What's this called, the fuller?
The
Bohi. Bohi's the fuller.
Which one's that?
This, the dugout part here. What they call the blood groove. It isn't that really, it's just a fuller. English swords have them as well. It lightens the blade, that's all it does. Takes metal out to make it light. Many swords don't have that. But you've all had a top-heavy sword where you swing and it pulls you because it's not balanced. That's why the guards are often quite heavy. It's pushing the weight back toward me so it's better balanced. It makes it heavier, but it's easier to wield. If I'm holding this and there's no guard and it pulls me, it's very top-heavy. So the fuller cuts out all that extra weight and makes it manageable for small people. And you get the kaze wind from it. The wind sound is when you have the bohi. Blades had no signature. Any questions on that? Curvature depends on the time of history. They were straight at one point when they came from China. And then they curved more. Tachi were more curved because you were on a horse. So they wanted the big curves to slash more because you're on horseback. Then at some point, they got these swords became quite straight.
When originally, like Chinese swords, they're typically dual-edged. When did that second edge get lost from Japanese
I don't know. I
swords?
think it's over a long period of history, but there was a time where the Japanese sword, you can still find them, they had a double-edged end. Like this would be edged as well. And then it kind of went away.
Kind of like a Greek sword.
Yeah. But the Chinese swords are typically two blades. You can't put them back the same way. You have to literally put them in the saya without rubbing your skin because you'll cut yourself. But there are many swords out here that have a different type of tip on them. And it looks just like a Chinese blade. It's got two sides. And it doesn't have a yokote or anything. It's just sharp all the way. And it goes to a tip. And it doesn't have the boshi.
Silly question.
No.
Did China have samurai and ninja?
Their own form.
Okay.
If you think of samurai as warriors, yeah, they had
Sure.
that, and ninja as a job within the warrior society. Remember, shinobi weren't a separate thing. They were usually samurai,
So they still
and
had,
their job was ninjutsu, espionage.
So they still had like the hierarchy, and then like almost mercenaries and defenders of the Lord.
Yeah, I would
etc.
think any society like that probably has the same structure because they copy each other.
Okay, great.
You know, because they're close, so it's going to drift over. But yeah, I would think China had all the same caste type systems.
Okay.
So now we put it back, right? It might be a good idea to wipe this down before you put it back. So what do I put back first?
habaki is what you
Habaki.
get it off.
What's the purpose of this? What's its purpose? Does anyone know?
It joins to the seppa so it doesn't slide.
Well, this is what seals the blade in the saya.
Yeah.
This is what holds it in. So this is what keeps the air out of here. When I put this back, you'll hear it. It locks it, and it sucks. It not sucks the air out, but now it's almost airtight. So a true, well-made sword, this is matched to that completely, and to the blade itself. But the habaki fits beautifully.
Yeah, it is. It's nice.
And it should be where it doesn't come out when you. If you do that, it's loose. It means you need to shim it. But it should be just enough where I pull it slightly, it comes out. That's a perfect fit. This is all hand designed, of course, because it's old. But the modern swords, again, most of the habaki are standard. They're a standard size, standard blade. You have to pay big money to get it custom made. But that's the purpose. Plus it cleans up the edges here. Next, what do I put on? The seppa. And you'll see one side's decorative, the other's flat. The decorative is the side you want the people to see. So if you ever question it, just put the fancy side toward the habaki. Tachi have 6 seppa.
Wow.
They have a large O, a chu, and a small ko seppa. So they have 3 on here and 3 on the other side of the guard. Suba. This one's handmade. It has a signature. So sometimes the suba, I don't know if you can see that. That has a signature on it too. That's a handmade guard. Signature's here. It's hidden. The seppa hides the mei, the signature. And then the second one, so I need to put the fancy side this way. And then the handle, it's pretty simple. You remember that the sword has 2 sides, ura and omote, which is which?
I think I have the saya, actually. I don't know.
See this, I can just push the peg and it's ready. So nice. Omote is the outside, the side that faces your friends. So when it's on your left hip, omote is this way. Blade up. If you figure blade up, the omote is that way. Now if I'm facing Dawn there, the omote is the side facing her. It's outside, it's what's visible. So you'll often see the guards here have a lot of decoration on this side so that Dawn's impressed. And then this side's usually quite dull because it's facing me. Who cares what it looks like? Everything's about that. The ura side is the side toward your body. So the signature on these is always outside. Underneath, the signature of the blade master, even though you don't see it, is facing my friends. You'll never see it, but it's that way. Now, if you're wearing a tachi, the old swords, everything's backwards. The signature's on this side, the omote of the tachi, nothing on the ura. I know that's a lot to absorb, but there it is. Omote means, outside, what is perceived, what's given to the public. Fancy, decorative. The ura is secret, it's hidden. And that's what's not fancy. And that's why when I'm handing the sword to Cole, I am handing him the omote side. The side with all the bling, the signatures under here. I'm handing that to my friend. I would not hand the ura side to him. A lot of rigmarole, isn't there? Did you get it back together, or is it really hard with the peg? You got to line the holes up perfectly.
The suba guard on this one has become warped, so it's kind of creating extra gap, but I think I noticed that's why the pegs were coming out on one side and not the other.
A hammer was your friend back then, so you could hammer that at home.
Because on this side, I can put the
even if you get one in, that's enough, because I can put them in later.
It's the other side.
It's really hard to line them up once you take it apart. Unless, again, it's an old blade. And then when I have the blade in the ground, you all know this from your etiquette, from the Rei. How do I put the sword on the ground when I salute it?
The blade should face you.
Blade toward me. And again, typically I put my handle to the left, here. There are many schools that put the handle to the right, just so you know. But I can draw that quite quickly. This way it's hard to draw. Harder. blade toward me. And when I saluted him there. Any questions? I mean, that's really quick. My gosh, it's quick. You've all held this, I assume. If not, you can. You won't even want to hold the old sword? Forgive me, but I'm going to hand it to you. Well, actually, I got to do it the right. I can't not do it correctly. Here. Thank you. You have it?
Sir.
Okay. And you can draw it out. I give you permission to draw it out. Yeah, what I could do is with a piece of wood, Aaron, I would take a mallet and a piece of wood on the kashira or on the super guard, and I'd hammer it a little bit.
Okay, I just feel bad because
if you hand it to me, I'll grab it improperly. That's okay. Like if I found that this needs to go this way more, Aaron, what I'll do is just take a block of wood and I'll hammer it. You can hammer the guard if you have a rubber mallet, but you might ruin it.
Yeah, we noticed that, I think it must have been when I was pulling it off, or it was already like that the Suba guard is like, it's multiple pieces that kind of worked around each other.
Yeah, this is quite lined up. It's not perfect, but I can see that these need to be hammered back in, I can tell. It's close though. It's like a millimeter off. But I think with a hammer, once I hit it, it'll go through.
Okay.
Go ahead and sheath it back and I'll fix it later. So who's left to take the written test? Cole, 2, 3. If you want to do it today, we can do it today, after any time though. It's no rush. It's not about pass fail. I just want you to know the parts. That's all.
They go in either way. So.
And you remember it's called saya, not saya. A lot of people say saya, saya, saya. What's the mouth called? Koiguchi, carp's mouth. This part, the chestnut, kurigata, shitodome are the little parts in here that keep the sageo from breaking off. Plus it looks cool. Plus the kurigata is always on the omote side. So that holds it in your belt, it keeps it from falling out. And if it's dark, if you feel that with your left hand, the blade is up. So that kurigata has a lot of purpose to it. If you're going to clean your sword, get some choji oil. You can buy this online anywhere. But again, for modern swords that are mono steel, that are not handcrafted, this is all you really need. It's all you need. Although they say when you oil your blade, you can draw it quicker because it rubs on your skin and it's a little smoother.
Daryl had made the suggestion using gun oil for modern
Gun
swords.
oil can work, but test it because some gun oils might not be good.
Oh, okay.
Test it on a little part of the blade. Are we ready?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Okay, we need to
We have to
move the
relearn
stuff.
so much.
Are your legs sore probably from sitting so long? It's a good way to wake up. Hope your friend's up.